The first rule of surviving the forest was simple. Never follow a voice. The second rule came much later. Never wave back. I learned that rule the hard way, because the person watching us wasn't asking for help. They were waiting for permission. By the time Ethan and I reached what should have been the 19th day inside marker 13, we had stopped counting the hours. The sun no longer rose where it should. Night sometimes lasted only minutes. Other times it seemed to stretch forever. Our watches had frozen. Our phones had died days ago. Even hunger felt different. Almost. Forgotten. The forest wasn't just trapping us anymore. It was slowly changing us. That morning, thick mist clung to the trees so tightly that we could barely see 20 feet ahead. Every branch looked like a hand. Every shadow resembled a person. Neither of us spoke. Words had become dangerous. We crossed an old wooden bridge over a dry creek. Halfway across, Ethan suddenly grabbed my arm so hard it hurt. "Don't move." I froze. "What?" He slowly pointed toward the opposite side of the creek. At first, I saw nothing. Then, a person, standing perfectly still between two trees. They wore an old yellow raincoat. Their hood covered their face. One hand rested against the trunk of a pine tree. The other hung motionless by their side. They weren't hiding. They wanted us to see them. "Hello," I shouted. No answer. The figure didn't move, didn't wave, didn't even breathe. I looked at Ethan. "You think they're lost?" His expression turned pale. "They've been following us." "What?" "I saw them yesterday." My stomach tightened. "You never told me." "I thought I imagined it." We carefully crossed the bridge. The moment we stepped onto the other side, the figure was gone. No footsteps, no broken branches, nothing. Only empty forest. We searched for nearly 30 minutes. There was no sign anyone had ever stood there. Then Ethan found something hanging from a branch, a faded yellow ribbon, freshly tied. It hadn't been there before. We kept walking, trying to convince ourselves it had been another survivor, trying to ignore the feeling that someone was always just beyond the trees. Watching, waiting. Around noon, we stopped beside a small lake. The water was perfectly still, like polished glass. As I bent down to refill my bottle, I noticed another reflection. Mine, Ethan's, and someone standing directly behind us. I spun around instantly. Nobody. When I looked back into the lake, the third reflection was still there, smiling. Its face slowly turned toward me. The reflection raised one hand. It waved. I stumbled backward. The water rippled. The reflection disappeared. Ethan looked terrified. "You saw it too?" I nodded silently. That afternoon, the sightings became more frequent. Every few miles, we'd catch a glimpse of someone standing between the trees, always too far away to recognize, always disappearing the instant we approached. Sometimes they wore the yellow raincoat, sometimes dark hiking clothes. Sometimes they looked exactly like one of the missing campers from the photographs we'd found. Late in the day, we reached a narrow valley filled with tall, dead trees. The air felt strangely warm. The silence was overwhelming. Then someone whistled, a cheerful tune. Soft, familiar. Ethan stopped walking. "So do I." It was the melody Jake always whistled during our hiking trips. The exact rhythm, the exact pauses. Impossible. The whistling came again, closer this time. We followed it, against every instinct. Because hope is stronger than fear. The valley opened into a wide clearing. There, standing in the middle of it, was Jake. Alive, smiling, wearing the same backpack he'd disappeared with weeks earlier. "Ryan," he waved. "Ethan." For one beautiful second, I believed it. I ran toward him. Ethan tackled me before I'd gone 10 feet. We crashed to the ground. "What are you doing?" I shouted. He pointed ahead. My blood froze. Jake had no shadow. The sun shone directly above him. Every tree cast a shadow. Every rock, every blade of grass, but not him. As we watched, his smile slowly widened, far wider than any human mouth could. Then, he blinked. Sideways, like a lizard. We backed away. Jake remained smiling, perfectly still. Then he spoke, using Jake's voice perfectly. "I knew you'd come." His body didn't move while he talked, only his lips. Everything else remained frozen, like a mannequin. The forest suddenly echoed with movement. Dozens of figures appeared between the trees, watching. Silent. Each one wearing different clothes, different faces, different ages, yet all standing in the exact same pose, heads slightly tilted, hands hanging loosely, smiling. There must have been 50 of them, maybe more. None stepped forward, none attacked, They simply watched. Then, every one of them waved. At exactly the same time, a cold wave of panic swept through me. Without thinking, I raised my own hand. "No," Ethan screamed. Too late. The moment I waved back, every figure disappeared, instantly, like someone had switched off a light. Silence. Then something touched my shoulder. I spun around. Nobody, but fresh fingerprints slowly appeared on my jacket. Wet. Dark, far too large to be human. Ethan stared at them, his face drained of color. "You acknowledged them. What does that mean?" He whispered so quietly I almost didn't hear him. "They know you can see them now." The forest changed after that. The trees seemed closer together, the air heavier, the shadows darker. As evening approached, we found another abandoned ranger station. Inside, the walls were covered with hundreds of missing person posters, some decades old, some recent. One poster had today's date. I stared at the photograph. It showed me. Standing beside Ethan, both of us smiling, the headline read "Missing." Below it, someone had written in fresh ink. They waved back. I ripped the poster from the wall. Behind it, another poster, then another, then another. Everyone showed different hikers. Everyone carried the same handwritten sentence. They waved back. The station door slammed shut behind us. The windows darkened instantly. Outside, someone knocked. 3 slow knocks. Knock. Then Jake's voice, soft, friendly. "Can I come in?" Neither of us answered. Another knock. "My hands are cold." Then another. "I don't want to be alone." Tears filled my eyes. The voice sounded so real, so human. Ethan grabbed my wrist before I could reach the door. He quietly pointed toward the floor. A shadow slowly slid underneath the door. But there was no one outside. The shadow stood upright, becoming the shape of a person, standing silently inside the room, its outline sharpened, arms, legs, head. Then, eyes opened, bright white, unblinking. It smiled, without a mouth. Behind it, more shadows seeped beneath the door. Then beneath the windows, then through cracks in the walls, dozens of them, all standing motionless, watching. One by one, they began taking shape, faces, hair, clothes, until every shadow became someone we'd seen before. The woman in the yellow raincoat. Jake, the ranger. The faceless mimic, Lily. Even us. My copy looked directly into my eyes, then smiled, slowly raised one hand and waved. I didn't move, couldn't move. The copy nodded, almost proudly, then spoke with my own voice. Perfectly. "You already answered." The lantern inside the station exploded. Darkness swallowed the room. The last thing I heard was dozens of footsteps walking away, taking someone with them. When daylight finally returned, the ranger station door stood wide open. The shadows were gone. The posters had vanished. Everything looked normal. Almost. Only one thing had changed. Ethan's backpack remained on the floor. His flashlight, his jacket, his map. Everything. Except Ethan. He was gone. No footprints, no struggle, no sound, only a single yellow ribbon tied to the doorway, moving gently in the morning breeze. And somewhere deep inside the forest, someone wearing Ethan's jacket turned, looked directly at me, and vanished between the trees. To be continued.